Hi, I'm Greg Dell, joined by attorney Rachel Alters, and we're going to talk about reviews of Reliance Standard. And Rachel, on our website we have reviews from claimants that are policyholders of Reliance Standard who share their experiences of what it's been like for them. A lot of them are negative reviews about their experience, but I want to explore in this video from our side of handling claims to kind of explain why all of these claimants are having a negative experience with Reliance Standard, and also, encourage other people to leave more reviews about Reliance Standard, because what it does is it keeps that company honest to expose their behaviors and maybe even teach Reliance Standard to say, don't do these things the way you're doing, and also educate, more importantly, the claimants who are watching our videos, of which thousands of people do, which we greatly appreciate, so that they keep themselves in the best position possible to keep their benefits being paid. But that being said, you deal with all of the disability insurance companies. I've handled thousands of claims over the past 25 years of disability. When someone calls you and they go, Rachel, I have a claim with Reliance Standard, no matter what it is, an application, a denial, which is more often than not, it's a denial that they're calling you about. What are your thoughts about Reliance Standard as a company in having to go against them and help the claimant?
Right. So Reliance Standard is, I get frequent calls about Reliance Standard, and I'm never surprised, never shocked. Reliance Standard does not like to pay. They don't like to pay at any stage. They don't like to pay at the initial application stage. If you end up in court, they don't like to pay a lot of money at settlements. They're just not the greatest insurance company. I don't, like if I could say, hey, if you're going to get a job and they're going to offer you insurance, try to find a job that does not use Reliance Standard as their insurance carrier for disability, because likely you're not going to get paid. It's just, it happens over and over, and people are very frustrated, and I get frustrated for people when they call me with a Reliance Standard claim because they just want to deny, and I don't think that they are a very reputable company.
Okay, so obviously you've had a lot of experience with them, so they're one of the more difficult companies to deal with.
Very.
But let's try to get into the source of where that comes from. Reliance Standard falls into borderline one of the top 10 largest disability and group disability insurance companies from the organization that slips my mind right now that keeps that data of tracking them. And with being in the top 10, they're pretty big. So that means they're running volume, as opposed to these other companies that have higher dollar type policies and run lower volume. But with higher volume in the disability insurance world requires more staff to administer these claims, more supervisory responsibilities from managers, and harder to get a consistent protocol as to how they're managing these claims. So what are the things that you see, especially in dealing with Reliance Standard, that are the most common things that lead to denial or delay even of benefit payments?
I see a lot with Reliance Standard. One that comes to mind is that they tend to hire the same peer reviewers over and over. So you'll see the same doctors that they'll hire, you see the same names coming up again and again. Okay, so this doctor did a paper review, and this doctor again finds that the claimant is not disabled. And no matter how much medical evidence and proof that the claimant presents that shows that, hey, this person is not able to do the material duties of their job, it's clear, their doctors, the same doctors over and over, you see the same names, they say, oh, well, we reviewed the same records and our interpretation is different. We think that this person can work full-time, and I see it all the time. And I say, oh, here's this doctor again. They tend to use the same people, maybe because they have, they work in-house for Reliance, or maybe they have a contract with them, or who knows, but that seems to be what I see over and over again.
So they're streamlining and getting a continuity of denials based upon going back to the same people who have proven to be reliable for them, and reliable more so in the sense of leading towards denial versus approval.
Oh yeah, they're clearly biased. They're hired by the insurance company, paid by the insurance company, and they give the insurance company the opinion that they want.
All right, let's be fair to Reliance Standard for a second, just in terms of the industry as a whole. Are they allowed to go to their own doctors or pick whatever doctors they want, at least in the initial stages of reviewing a claim, when making these decisions?
They are. They're supposed to use a doctor that's educated and experienced in the type of disability that you have. They don't always do that either. But yes, they are supposed to do that.
And the law allows for that.
The law allows them to do that. So they can just do a paper review. They could cherry pick medical records and just look at the ones that are most beneficial to denying the claim, which they do all the time. And yes, the law does allow them to do that.
And when we say the law allows that, people are
Yeah.
watching this and they're going, well, shit, what are my remedies? What am I going to do? Well,
Right.
when we say, or when I'm saying the law allows that, that means that they could basically do the bare minimum to review a claim and deny a claim. What it doesn't mean is that a court's going to uphold what they do, because the
Right.
law is that they have to act reasonably in their administration of a claim and in reaching a decision. Reasonable is subjective. Reasonable is ultimately, in these cases, which are governed by ERISA, which is almost all of the policies that Reliance sells, reasonable is determined by a judge.
Right.
So while Reliance can do whatever they want to do in terms of how they're going to make a decision, ultimately it comes down to, is the judge going to find that it was reasonable in terms of how they reached a decision and what their decision was. So, so the wrongs over here doesn't mean that they go to court and say, Judge, we're allowed to do this. We're allowed to use the same doctors that we use all the time. We're allowed to not examine them. We're allowed to not do functional capacity exams. We're allowed to not call their doctors. We're allowed to not speak to them. We're allowed to not do all of the things that a reasonable claim review would do.
Right.
So it's not illegal. But the judge says, fine, you guys can do all of those things that are not reasonable, but I'm going to reverse your claim every time you come to court. When it gets to court, though, and you talked about Reliance, like not wanting to pay initially, although they do pay, claims, not to say they don't pay any, and not wanting to pay in litigation, do you find that they fight aggressively in litigation?
Yes, I do, and they don't want to. We do negotiate and we do enter mediation with them and try to attempt settlements. They don't like to pay large dollar settlements, so they will go to court and fight. I find that they do, which we're happy to do as well.
I mean, obviously that's something that we do all the time,
Yeah.
but and all of these things are confidential in terms of what's going on. But I think, from my experience in litigating a lot with them, is that they're very confident. You would say they're like a confident personality, in that if we deny you, then we couldn't have made a mistake and we
Right.
think you're disabled. And you know what? If you don't like our particular offer, we'll go to court. And if the court makes us pay, clearly we'll pay, unless we
Sure.
want to appeal again. But, we feel confident in what we did, and we think the law is on our side. And that is an attitude of a company that they're allowed to have, certainly, but that's what's causing so many negative reviews, because would you agree it's more of an attitude of let's look for a reason to deny as opposed to let's look for a reason to approve?
Absolutely.
Do you see other companies that do have an attitude of, is there a reason to, approve here, versus let me look for all the reasons not to pay?
Yeah, no, I think that there's a lot of other companies, because we work with all of them,
Right.
that I find that they do have more of a tendency to give the benefit of the doubt to the claimant, more so than Reliance Standard. Reliance Standard just says, we're not going to pay, we're going to fight you all the way. If you want to accept our very small settlement, you can accept it. Otherwise, we're taking you to court. We're going to take our risk because, we think we're going to win in court. And if we don't, all we have to do is pay you what we already had to owe you in the first place. And so there's really not that much at risk for them.
When I look at some of the reviews that have been left on our site, and they talk about denials and more so they talk about delays in payment, or I sent them this information, they say they didn't get it. Why do you think that kind of behavior is happening? Why are people having that experience of, just delays in getting timely payments, or information not received, or
Right.
we sent the request to the doctor for medical records. The doctor's office, how many times you hear this, says we sent it to them.
Right. They
And
never,
then
they
go,
never
got
get it.
So what's going on with that? Why is that a common thing?
I think it's the number of claims that they have going on at one time, and maybe they're understaffed. Maybe their staff isn't trained like they should be. I think there's a lot of mistakes that happen, because when I get the call, it's the frustration from these claimants that we fax these things 10 times. They claim they don't get it. My doctor has told them multiple times that I can't work. They say they call my doctor to talk to my doctor. My doctor says they never receive a call. So they'll put in the denial letter, we called your doctor 3 times to speak with them, and the doctor themselves writes a letter, I never received a call. Well, I don't know what number they're calling. This happens over and over again. So I think it's a lot of incompetence, with the people that are working for Reliance, and I think maybe they have a lot of claims, so they're overworked and, they just don't manage them properly.
And so what precautions or actions do you take to avoid those kinds of things when you're representing a claimant so that you don't get this, I didn't get this, I didn't get that?
Right, so when we manage a claim, whether it's we win an appeal or we manage it from the get-go, we handle everything. So all the claim forms come through us, all the medical records. Anytime Reliance Standard needs something, they have to come through us. And we put everything in writing and we confirm, we fax something over, we'll call and confirm, did you get it? We make sure that everything is received in a timely manner because we don't want to run into the problem where Reliance says, well, you never sent us this. So we are very on top of it. We make sure that we dot our I's, cross our T's, and that Reliance receives everything. And we will get the medical records from the doctor. Instead of relying on the doctor sending them to Reliance, we will provide them directly to Reliance. And then we have proof that we faxed them over. We can overnight them, whatever. Sometimes we email. We also have emails. And we make sure that everything gets there so that they don't have that excuse to say, oh, well, we never received it, so we're denying your case.
I think there's, in our studio, protect your benefits is our theme, and then it's the way that we operate here. I think in the business-to-business relationship, like how when we get involved and we're working directly with Reliance, they don't play the games or the delays that they do when it's claimant to business,
right,
which
not
is
as
what
much.
which is what that is. So,
right.
I still think they'll still do a crappy review or use their same techniques, but there's a heightened level of respect, or maybe it's just the individual, because at the end of the day, it's individuals who are handling each claim. And Reliance Standard does have some good people over there who've been there for a while and do a good job, but then you get someone who doesn't know what they're doing and they're just pushing buttons. So they tend to give more respect when you're represented and not play as many games because they know that, especially with our office, that's not going to fly, that there's no reason to say you didn't get it or you didn't do this because we email, we fax, we FedEx, we hit them on three different fronts to say here's everything. So you do have that level of protection, but it shouldn't really reach that point where it needs to be there. So there's lots of things that Reliance Standard has earned their negative reputation for what they do, and hopefully they'll improve, but doubtful. So it all comes down to making sure you always have the best evidence possible for your claim and submitting that. And getting it there, and not only getting it to them, but making sure your doctors are doing everything they can for you. And we have lots of videos where we talk about how to do an appeal, how things to expect in a lawsuit, how to manage a claim, and all services that we offer for people. So I always tell everyone, thank you so much for these reviews that you're putting, and learn from our videos. And if you're out there and you have an issue with Reliance Standard, that they should reach out to you, myself, any of our lawyers. We're always going to provide a free consultation. No matter where you live in the country, we're available to assist you. And we look forward to the opportunity to speak with you about your Reliance Standard claim.